Aria's hands shook as the champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered against the marble floor. The sound cut through the music and laughter like a gunshot. Heads turned. Her father's glare was sharp enough to slice her in half. Isabelle's perfect smile didn't falter, she just brushed past Aria as if accidents were what her sister did best. And beside her, Dante Moretti didn't even flinch. He stood tall, calm, untouchable, like a man who'd seen blood spill over more expensive floors. Aria mumbled an apology and knelt quickly to gather the pieces. The glass cut her palm, but she didn't stop. She couldn't give them another reason to call her careless. Not tonight, not when the entire New York underworld was in her family's mansion to celebrate the engagement between her sister and the man everyone feared to cross. Dante's voice broke through the murmurs. Leave it. It wasn't loud, but it carried weight. People froze. Even her father straightened. Aria lifted her gaze, and for the first time, Dante Moretti looked directly at her. His eyes were dark, too calm, too knowing. She swallowed hard, stood up, and whispered, "Sorry, sir." "Don't apologize for accidents," he said quietly, eyes still on her hand. "They happen when people forget to look where they're stepping." Aria didn't know if that was an observation or a warning. She nodded and backed away, pulse racing. When she reached the edge of the room, she felt her sister's stare burning into her. Isabelle was radiant tonight, every hair in place, every gesture perfect. She belonged in Dante's world. Aria didn't. She'd built her life far from this, nursing school, small apartments, friends who didn't know her last name carried blood money. But even from across the room, she could feel Dante's gaze linger for a moment longer than it should have. The party dragged on. Aria smiled when spoken to, answered questions she didn't care about, and tried not to think about the man her sister would marry. She told herself she was just imagining things, that Dante looked at everyone like that, like he was reading their sins. When she finally escaped into the hallway, the air felt different, quieter, colder. She pressed a hand against her chest, trying to calm her heartbeat. The Romano mansion was vast, filled with corners that whispered secrets. She walked without thinking, until she heard her father's voice, sharp and angry, behind one of the study doors. "You said the alliance needed time," her father hissed. Dante's voice answered, low and steady. "Time is what gets men killed, Mr. Romano. Move up the date. A week from now." Aria froze. She shouldn't be hearing this. "That's impossible," her father said. "There are arrangements." "I don't care about arrangements," Dante interrupted. "I care about control. If your daughter is to be my wife, I want her before someone decides to test my patience." Silence followed. Heavy. Dangerous. Aria's breath caught. She tried to step back quietly, but the heel of her shoe scraped the floor. The door swung open. Dante stood there, eyes locked on her. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then his voice dropped lower, like thunder before a storm. "How much did you hear?" Aria's throat dried. Nothing. I was just." He stepped closer. "You shouldn't eavesdrop, Miss Romano." "I wasn't," she stammered. "I got lost." He studied her for a long moment, then tilted his head slightly. "You're not like your sister." Her pulse jumped. "That's obvious." "She hides her fear behind a smile," Dante said, almost to himself. "You don't bother hiding yours." Aria frowned, unsure if he was mocking her. "Because I'm not afraid of you." That made him smile, a small, dangerous curve. "You should be." Before she could reply, her father appeared behind him. "Aria," he barked. "Go back to the guests. Now." She obeyed, keeping her eyes down as she brushed past Dante. But even as she walked away, she felt the weight of his stare following her down the hall. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Aria avoided the main room, choosing instead to linger on the balcony. The city lights glimmered below, distant and silent. From inside, she could still hear laughter, her sister's voice mingling with Dante's deep tone. She should have gone back to her apartment. She didn't belong here. But something in curiosity, maybe something darker, kept her feet planted. When the guests finally began to leave, Aria slipped through the garden path toward the side gate. The roses smelled too sweet, too heavy. The moonlight cast sharp shadows on the stone. And just when she thought she'd made it unseen, that same voice spoke behind her. Running away already? She turned sharply. Dante was standing near the fountain, jacket undone, tie loosened. He looked less like the untouchable mafia king and more like a man unraveling. I wasn't running, she said. I was leaving. Leaving implies you were ever here, he replied softly. Aria folded her arms. You shouldn't talk to me like this. You're engaged to my sister. He took a step closer. And yet, you're the only one who looks at me like I'm human. Her breath hitched. Don't do that. Do what? Whatever this is. Whatever game you play with people to make them forget who you are. Dante's gaze darkened. I don't play games, Aria. I take what I want. And what is it you want now? He didn't answer. The silence stretched between them, full of things neither dared to say. Aria shook her head, whispering, This is wrong. I know, he said quietly. That doesn't stop it. For the first time, she saw something break in his expression, something almost vulnerable. She stepped back, heart pounding, not sure if she was more afraid of him or herself. Go inside, he said finally, voice rougher now. Before someone sees us. She hesitated, then turned to leave. But before she reached the door, he added, You should learn to be careful, Aria Romano. The world we live in doesn't forgive curiosity. That night, Aria couldn't sleep. Dante's words replayed over and over. His voice, his stare, the way he'd said her name, as if it meant something. It shouldn't have meant anything. But deep down, she knew it already did. Aria woke before sunrise, the faint ache in her chest reminding her that sleep hadn't silenced the night before. The mansion was quiet, wrapped in the kind of stillness that comes before storms. She tried to convince herself it had all been nothing, a strange, dangerous moment born of nerves and champagne, but the memory of Dante's eyes refused to fade. Downstairs, breakfast was already being served. Isabelle sat at the long dining table, phone in hand, smiling at something on the screen. Their father read the paper, expression fixed in its usual stern lines. Aria moved to pour herself coffee. You disappeared early, Isabelle said without looking up. I wasn't feeling well, Aria answered. Of course not, Isabelle murmured. Crowds never were your thing. Their father lowered the paper. You'll attend dinner tonight. Dante's family expects both of my daughters to be present. No excuses. Aria nodded, though the thought made her stomach twist. The more she tried to stay invisible, the more she was dragged into Dante's orbit. When evening came, the dinner unfolded like a chess match. The Moretti family arrived, men in dark suits, women in glittering gowns. Dante greeted everyone politely, his composure unbreakable. When his gaze found Aria across the room, her heart skipped once, maybe twice. He didn't speak to her directly, not even a glance too long, but the air between them seemed charged with something unspoken. Later, as laughter echoed from the dining hall, Aria slipped into the garden again. The night air calmed her nerves. She sat on the cold stone bench by the fountain, letting the quiet drown out the chaos inside. Are you hiding from me again? Dante's voice broke the silence. She jumped slightly but didn't turn. Maybe I'm hiding from everyone. He walked around to face her, hands in his pockets. Smart choice. People in that room would eat you alive. I grew up with them, she said. I'm used to pretending. Dante's eyes softened. You shouldn't have to pretend. Aria forced a small laugh. says the man who pretends better than anyone. He studied her. You're braver than you think, Aria. Brave, she echoed. I'm terrified. Good, he said. Fear keeps people alive. The honesty in his tone disarmed her. He wasn't teasing or threatening. He was confessing something. Why me? She asked quietly. You could have anyone. Why look at me like that? Dante exhaled slowly. Because when I first walked into your father's office, you were standing in the garden. You had dirt on your hands from repotting flowers. Everyone inside was talking about money and war, but you, he paused, eyes narrowing as though the memory hurt. You were real. And I haven't been able to forget you since. Her breath caught. You've been watching me? Not in the way you think, he said. I've been trying not to. Aria shook her head. This is wrong. Isabelle loves you. She loves the idea of power, he replied. And I'm tired of being an idea. The words hit her harder than she expected. She stood, trying to escape the weight of it, but he caught her wrist, lightly, not enough to frighten, just enough to stop her from running. I shouldn't have said that, he murmured. But it's the truth. She met his eyes, anger and longing fighting inside her. Do you ever think about the damage you cause? Every day, Dante said softly. That's why I'm careful about what I destroy. And what if I don't want to be destroyed? Then don't stand so close to me. His voice was barely a whisper, but it burned through her like a confession. He let her hand go. The night seemed to hold its breath around them. A call from inside, her father's voice, broke the moment. Aria turned away first. Dante didn't follow, but she felt his gaze on her until she disappeared through the doorway. That night, she tried again to sleep and failed. Her mind was a maze of what-ifs. When her phone buzzed near midnight, her pulse leapt. A message, meet me by the garden. 5 minutes. She hesitated. She should delete it, pretend it never came. Instead, she found herself slipping into a sweater and tiptoeing past Isabelle's room. The hallway was dim, the air thick with silence. Outside, the moonlight painted the garden silver. Dante was waiting by the fountain, as still as a statue. When he saw her, his shoulders eased. You shouldn't have come, he said, though relief threaded his voice. You're the one who asked me here. I wanted to see if you would. Aria crossed her arms. And now that I have? Now I can tell you something you need to hear. He stepped closer, his expression torn between resolve and regret. I'm ending the engagement. Her breath stopped. What? I'll speak to your father tomorrow. There will be consequences, but I'll handle them. You can't just, Dante, my family. I'll find another way to keep the peace. I won't marry Isabelle when my heart belongs somewhere else. She stared at him, speechless. The world tilted around her. This will destroy everything, she whispered. He nodded. Maybe. But it's the only way I know how to live with myself. Silence stretched again, filled only by the sound of water trickling from the fountain. Promise me you'll say nothing, he said. Not to your father, not to Isabelle. Give me 3 days. 3 days for what? To make things right. Aria wanted to say no, to end this before it went further, but the look in his eyes stole the word from her. She found herself nodding. Dante's voice dropped lower. Thank you. She tried to steady her breathing. You're risking everything. So are you, he said. But some things are worth the risk. He stepped closer. The space between them vanished, the air charged with emotion neither could name. His hand brushed her cheek, and for one fragile second, she let herself forget who he was. When he leaned in, she didn't move away. The kiss was slow at first, hesitant, then desperate, like a confession neither wanted but both needed. When they finally broke apart, she was trembling. I should go, she whispered. Tomorrow, he said. I'll end it tomorrow. As she turned to leave, he added softly, you deserve more than shadows, Aria. She didn't look back, because if she did, she wouldn't leave at all. Inside, the mansion was silent. Isabelle's door was closed. Their father's office light glowed faintly under the door. Aria slipped into her room and collapsed against the wall, heart pounding with a mixture of guilt and impossible hope. She told herself she'd wake up tomorrow and it would all fade like a dream. But somewhere deep down, she already knew, dreams this dangerous don't disappear, they explode. The next morning, Aria awoke with a dull ache in her chest, a mixture of anticipation and dread twisting inside her. Dante's words from the night before replayed over and over. 3 days. He'll fix everything. She wanted to believe it, but the thought of her sister's happiness colliding with her own desire made her stomach churn. Breakfast was a strained affair. Isabelle chatted brightly about wedding plans and color schemes, her hands gesturing elegantly as if Aria weren't even there. Their father's eyes flicked to her once or twice, sharp and disapproving, as though he could see the war brewing silently in her mind. Aria ate mechanically, sipping her coffee while the family discussed arrangements and schedules. She couldn't concentrate, her thoughts kept drifting to Dante, to that garden, to the way he'd looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered in the world. She tried to disappear into the background during the rest of the day, but the mansion felt smaller now, like the walls themselves knew she was no longer invisible. Every glance, every polite nod from the guests seemed to hum with tension she could feel in her bones. Her phone buzzed once with a brief message, "Be ready tonight." No sender listed. She shivered, knowing exactly whose words those were, and knew she shouldn't respond. Even as she prepared herself for the dinner that evening, Aria's hands betrayed her nerves, trembling slightly as she adjusted her dress. She glanced at the mirror, trying to remind herself that she had a choice, she could walk away. But that choice felt like betrayal, not freedom. Dante arrived with the Moretti family that evening, and the air shifted immediately. Men in tailored suits and women with flawless poise entered the room, commanding attention without saying a word. Dante's gaze swept across the room like a predator, cool and measured. When it met Aria's, she froze. He gave her nothing, a small tilt of his head, a faint acknowledgement, but it was enough. Her pulse raced. The evening was tense, polite conversation interspersed with glances that carried hidden meanings. Aria avoided the main hall when she could, slipping out to the garden, as if the moonlight could shield her from the chaos inside. The roses glimmered under the faint glow, but they couldn't calm the storm inside her. "You're predictable," Dante's voice said suddenly, cutting through the night. She jumped, turning to find him standing there, leaning casually against the stone balustrade. "And you're a nuisance," she shot back, though her voice quivered slightly. "Am I?" His eyes darkened. "I'd say the exact same about you." Aria swallowed, anger masking the flustered heat rising in her chest. "I'm not supposed to be here." "You're engaged to my sister, remember?" "Yes," he admitted, stepping closer. "And yet, here we are." She looked away, heart pounding. "You said you'd end it. You promised 3 days." "I said I'd try," he replied quietly. "And I am trying, but the truth is, every time I see you, I'm reminded of why I can't. Why it's impossible to go through with this engagement without thinking of you." Aria's hands twisted in her lap. "Impossible. That's exactly what this is. You could ruin everything, our family, your reputation, the fragile peace between us." He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I don't care about the world if it means I have to pretend I don't care about you." Her throat tightened. "This is madness," she whispered. "Madness?" He smiled faintly. "Perhaps. Or maybe it's the first time I've ever felt alive in years." Aria wanted to argue, to say that he was wrong, that her loyalty to her family and her sister should outweigh everything else, but her voice failed her. She was trapped in the magnetism of his gaze, the heat of his presence, the dangerous, thrilling pull she had felt from the first moment they met. You can't keep doing this, she finally said, trying to regain control. Every glance, every word, it's a trap. And I'm falling into it. Then fall, he whispered, stepping closer. I'll catch you. Her heart leapt and sank at the same time. Falling for him was unthinkable, yet inevitable. He leaned in, brushing his lips against her temple, a whisper of a kiss that sent shivers down her spine. She wanted to pull away, to run, but she didn't. Time seemed suspended, filled only with the sound of their breaths and the soft rustle of the night. The weight of the forbidden, the thrill of secrecy, and the ache of desire pressed heavily upon them both. Finally, Dante pulled back, his voice low and rough. I need to handle Isabelle. I need to make this right, without destroying everything. 3 days, Aria. And no one can know. She nodded, trembling, her lips parting as if to protest, but no words came. She knew she had no choice. Her silence was the only way forward. The next 2 days were torture. Every glance from Isabelle, every mention of wedding plans, every polite comment from their father felt like a knife twisting in her chest. Dante remained distant during the day, appearing only in fleeting moments, each interaction loaded with meaning, each touch a reminder of the secret they shared. Aria found herself counting hours, minutes, longing for the moment they could meet again under the moonlight. On the third evening, Aria waited in the garden with bated breath. The air was thick, electric. Every shadow seemed to move with intention, every rustle of leaves like a whisper. She checked her phone. A single message blinked on the screen, tonight. Alone. No signature, no hint of playfulness, just the command. Her heart raced. She hesitated, then allowed herself to be drawn toward the fountain where their forbidden moments had begun. The moonlight painted Dante's figure in silver. Relief and fear collided within her as he turned to face her, expression unreadable. You kept your promise, he said softly. Alone. I had no choice, she whispered. He stepped closer. And yet, you came. That says more than words ever could. The tension between them snapped as he reached out, cupping her face in his hands. Aria, I can't wait any longer. I need to. A sound interrupted him, a soft crack of a branch, barely audible, but enough to make Aria freeze. Her chest tightened. She realized, with sudden clarity, that someone else had entered the garden. Dante's eyes narrowed. Stay behind me, he murmured. A figure emerged from the shadows. Aria's heart nearly stopped. The voice that cut through the silence was calm, cold, and filled with a quiet fury. So it was you. Aria's blood ran cold. She recognized the voice instantly. Isabelle. Dante stiffened, stepping between them. Isabelle. Don't, she said, eyes flashing. Don't speak. Aria could barely breathe. The sister she had adored, the sister whose happiness she had tried not to disrupt, was standing here, watching. Everything they had risked, the secret kisses, the stolen moments, the forbidden glances, was on the verge of shattering. And in that instant, Aria realized that the next words would decide everything: her family, her heart, and perhaps even her safety. Her chest heaved. Dante's hand brushed hers in a silent plea. She wanted to move, to speak, to explain, but the weight of guilt and desire paralyzed her. Explain yourself, Isabelle said finally, voice low, steady. Because I want every truth. Aria's mind raced. Dante's gaze locked on hers. For the first time, the dangerous, thrilling pull between them felt suffocating. Some secrets, she realized, are worth dying to keep. Aria's heart raced like a drum in her chest. Isabelle's eyes were sharp, unyielding, and the accusation in her voice cut through the night more sharply than any blade. Dante's hand tightened slightly on hers, a silent warning, but Aria couldn't move. She had no words, no excuses that would matter now. She started, but the sound caught in her throat. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Isabelle stepped closer, her heels clicking against the stone path. All those nights, all those whispered moments, do you think I'm blind? Aria's stomach lurched. She shook her head. I didn't mean for. You didn't mean for anything. Isabelle snapped, her voice breaking just enough to reveal the hurt beneath the fury. Do you know how long I've trusted him? How long I've believed this marriage would be my life? And you, she pointed at Aria, trembling with rage. You've been poisoning everything. Dante's presence loomed, protective and imposing. Isabelle, he said calmly, though Aria could hear the strain in his voice. You don't understand? Don't, Isabelle said sharply. Not one word. Aria's chest heaved as guilt and fear collided with the unspoken desire she couldn't deny. The secret, the stolen kisses, the nights spent trembling in the garden, they all came crashing down. She wanted to scream, to explain, but the words seemed futile against the weight of Isabelle's betrayal and rage. I should never have let this happen, Aria whispered, voice breaking. I didn't. You didn't what? Isabelle's glare could have frozen fire. Didn't love him? Didn't steal him? Didn't destroy the only family you have? I didn't mean for this. Aria cried, stepping back. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't choose this, it chose me. Dante's jaw tightened. Isabelle, listen. Shut up, she yelled, spinning toward him now. You think I don't see it? That he was always looking at her? That he wanted her from the start? Her voice cracked, trembling with both rage and heartbreak. You lied to me. To all of us. Aria flinched at the words, every syllable like a dagger to her heart. The man she had fallen for, the one who made her feel seen, had built his life on deception. But she also knew it wasn't entirely his choice. He had been trapped in the expectations of families, alliances, and a world of power she barely understood. Isabelle's hands shook. I can't believe this. How could you betray me, Aria? My own sister? I never wanted to betray you. Aria cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't choose him. You have to believe me. It just happened. Dante finally stepped forward, his voice firm, authoritative, yet carrying a rare softness. It's not like that, Isabelle. I didn't plan for this to happen. But the moment I saw Aria, I knew. I tried to honor the engagement, tried to respect the arrangements, but I can't lie to myself. I can't marry anyone I don't want. Isabelle's eyes narrowed. And you expect me to forgive this? After everything? You expect me to sit back while my fiancé and my sister? Stop. Dante's voice cut like steel. I am trying to fix this without destroying both families. I promised her silence, and I meant it. But now, you need to understand that nothing will happen without me protecting you and this family. Aria's throat tightened as she glanced between them. Isabelle's gaze was fierce, unforgiving, and Dante's calm dominance was the only anchor she had. Yet fear pressed against her ribs, and she realized that the moment had passed, there would be no quiet secrecy anymore. The world had shifted, and they were standing on the edge of a storm too powerful to control. Isabelle's face softened for a split second, then hardened again. I trusted you both, she whispered, almost to herself. I believed in family, in loyalty. And now, she shook her head, tears brimming. I don't know what's left. Dante reached for Aria's hand, but she shook her head. No. Not yet, she said, voice firm. This isn't about me right now. This is about her. I won't make it worse. A tense silence fell over the garden. The fountain's water trickled softly, the night holding its breath. Aria knew the coming days would be impossible, her family fractured, Dante caught between duty and desire, Isabelle hurt, furious, and potentially seeking revenge. She swallowed hard, looking at Dante. You said 3 days. Was that enough to fix it? He shook his head, expression grim. It was never going to be enough. But I needed hope. I needed to try. Aria felt a pang of longing and despair. For the first time, she truly understood the weight of love in their world, a world built on power, fear, and impossible choices. She had fallen, fully, knowing the risk, and now the consequences were real. A sudden sound from the mansion drew all their attention, the faint creak of a door, a footstep, a whisper. Aria's blood ran cold. Every nerve screamed danger. Isabelle's gaze darted toward the sound, sharp as a blade. Dante's hand found hers, gripping tightly. "This isn't over," Dante said quietly, his tone firm, protective. "Not yet." Aria nodded, trying to steady herself. She felt a shiver of fear mixed with adrenaline. She wanted to hide, to escape, to pretend none of this had happened. But deep down, she knew that hiding was no longer possible. The night stretched before them, heavy with unspoken truths and lingering desire. Aria realized that every secret, every stolen moment, every whispered word had led them here. And whatever came next, there was no turning back. For the first time, she understood what it meant to risk everything for someone. To be chosen, to be seen, to be wanted despite the consequences. Dante stepped closer once more, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We'll survive this," he murmured, voice rough with emotion. "Together, if we can." Aria's lips trembled as she nodded, the weight of fear and longing pressing down. "Together," she whispered. A sudden movement from the shadows caught her eye, and her stomach dropped. Isabelle stepped forward, her face unreadable, and her eyes locked on Aria's. "You lied to me," Isabelle said softly, almost like a verdict. "And now, we'll see what kind of consequences that brings." Aria felt the world tilt, heart hammering. The sister she had tried to protect, the one she loved, was no longer blind. And Dante, her only anchor, couldn't stop what was about to happen. The tension was electric. Every secret was exposed. Every choice mattered. And in that moment, Aria understood that life as she knew it was over. Her mind raced with fear and longing, desire and guilt. And as Isabelle advanced, eyes cold and unyielding, she realized one terrible truth: some betrayals could never be undone. Dante's hand tightened around hers, a silent promise, a lifeline in the storm. But even he couldn't protect her from the storm that was coming. Aria swallowed hard, her pulse in her throat. She looked between Dante and Isabelle, caught between love and loyalty, desire and fear. And then she made a silent promise to herself: no matter what happened, she wouldn't back down. Because in a world ruled by power and secrets, only those brave enough to face the truth could survive. And tonight, the truth had come. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with every twist and betrayal in Aria's journey. The story ends here for part 1, leaving the world fractured, hearts raw, and the cliffhanger set. Will Isabelle seek revenge? Will Dante risk everything? And how far will Aria go for forbidden love? Subscribe now and turn on notifications to catch part 2, because the danger, passion, and betrayal have only just begun.